Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. Today, we are here to finally take a look at the buffed Ellen, who is now, honestly feels like pretty much an entirely new character. Well, I guess still Ellen, but with some new flashy stuff that she can do thanks to her buffs. So Zenless Zone Zero 2.0 is bringing something really interesting to the game, and that is actual buffs for an existing character. In this case, it is for Ellen Jo, the first featured S-rank agent in Zenless Zone Zero. Now, since her release, we have had Miyabi as well as Hugo both being released after her, which, let's be honest, once those two were out, there was very little reason to use Ellen. And in fact, it actually felt pretty bad to use Ellen in comparison to these newer ICE DPS agents. However, now Ellen has been buffed, and yeah, I think the buffs are very interesting in that they definitely make her feel a lot stronger than she was. Now, if we actually take a look at her, we can see a new button right here called Activate Potential, and you'll have to click on this, or maybe it'll automatically be on once 2.0 hits. I don't know, but either way, there is this button here which will help buff her and effectively change her from version, I guess, 1 point whatever Ellen to version 2 to Ellen 2.0. So literally updating her from Ellen 1.0 to 2.0. Now, when you click on this, you will see that she basically gets, both of these abilities added, as well as another main one is here in her core skill. Starting off, we can see, actually, I'm going to move my head a bit. Scoop myself over there. So now we can see when we activate her potential, we have 2 additional basic attacks that you guys can read, and I will go through them, of course, as well. And finally, for her core skill, when you activate it, bam, check this out. This one we can just talk about right now, but this 100% crit damage applies to chain attack, ultimates, basic attack Icy Blade, and basic attack Glacial Blade Wave, which, by the way, are the 2 new basic attacks that Ellen is getting. One more really important change to her core skill is that without the potential activated, if you share the same attribute, Ice, or if you're part of the Victorian Housekeeping Co. faction, then you get this bonus. However, after you activate the potential, it adds the ability to have a stun character on Ellen's team in order to activate this 30% ice damage. And this is absolutely great because now she is compatible with Lighter, because before this she could not actually be used with Lighter plus a support character like Astra Yao. We can see here that her potential is off right now, and if we actually go and look at the team, we can see that her additional ability is not activated with Lighter on the team. And this was one big issue with her before, was that she didn't have good compatibility with Lighter. However, after we activate the potential here, now that it adds stun characters, we can see, look at that, now her additional ability is activated, giving her effectively a new best team. So yeah, this one little change really helps her out a lot with team building flexibility, allowing her to be used with so many more characters like Trigger as well. Without further ado, let's actually take a look at those buffs in the VR training mode. So on the surface level, Ellen is still quite similar. She likes to do these charged scissor attacks, which gives her the flash freezes in order to perform her, Icy Blade basic attack. So yeah, we can see there that that was one of the new attacks, the Icy Blade. And let's just go through the full attack string right here. You can see here that the basic 3 is automatically followed up with the Icy Blade. So this is really interesting because now, during the basic 3, if you swap cancel, you'll notice that she will still perform and finish that Icy Blade. So there's a lot of stuff that ends up going on with Ellen. So now let's take a look at her combo when she has a full 6 flash freezes. You'll see she does her basic 3 into the Icy Blade, into the new other basic attack, into another basic 3 into Icy Blade. So yeah, what you saw there was her new effectively basic attack string. And by simply just mashing the basic attack button with 6 flash freezes, you will see she kind of goes through this entirely new attack string. So one big advantage that this new attack string provides is that it effectively lasts a lot longer than Ellen's old attack string, which was just basic 1 2 3, basic 1 2 3. So that means that these 6 flash freeze charges actually runs you, takes you a lot further in terms of dealing more damage for longer. As we can see in this clip, Ellen version 2.0 is able to take out this Dullahan in significantly less time, thanks to the fact that she can sustain her DPS for much longer without needing to go into non-quick scissors attack, which Ellen 1.0 would frequently have to do. Now, another interesting thing is, if you guys saw the Icy Blade wave attack, this one is that right after that, you actually gain a quick charge. As a quick reminder, quick charge basically just allows you to charge your scissor a little bit faster in order to more quickly and efficiently gain those 3 flash freeze charges. So the next thing about Ellen is that some parts of her combo game have indeed changed. It is honestly pretty darn complicated, but the main thing that you need to kind of take away from this is that each way to initiate her combo has a different, I would say, like chain of attack string. So right here, let's say you do this with a full scissor charge. You'll see she goes into that new attack, into basic 3, into Icy Blade. So yeah, and then for example, earlier, how you could see that when we did the basic attack string, she goes from basic 1 2 3 into basic 3 into Icy Blade into Glacial Blade into basic 3 into Icy Blade. So it's a bit hard to explain, but basically in a way, the Glacial Blade wave, that new attack that you could see where she's kind of swooping in and out, replaces basic 1 and basic 2 in a lot of situations. It also happens to consume 2 flash freeze charges. So yeah, effectively Ellen gained more of a combo game, and honestly, the only real way to get a good feel for it is to practice it yourself and just use it yourself. For example, when you do her EX special, now she goes straight into her basic 3, into the Icy Blade, into, I mean, you guys can see it, right? I'll probably post it on the screen. And then if we use her EX1 and EX2, now she has another slightly different combo string where she goes into Icy Blade immediately into the same rest of the combo string from the EX1. So basically, every single way that she enters into her combo string, you're going to have to familiarize yourself with what attacks come after that. Now, let's talk a little bit about each of these individual attacks. Glacial Blade Wave is interesting because, all this yapping aside, the main thing about it is that she is actually invulnerable during this skill. So one big issue Ellen had before was that she would easily get interrupted during her basic 1, 2, and 3 combo. However, now, at least for the basic 1 and 2 part, she's going to be invulnerable, or, for the Glacial Blade Wave. So whenever the Glacial Blade Wave comes out, which again, you just need some practice to figure out when it comes out. Now, the next attack to talk about is the Icy Blade, which is that swipe thing that you saw from earlier. And the cool thing about that one is that what's the fastest way for her to do it? I think after this, after basic 3, is that it does more damage depending on the size of the enemy, small, medium, and large. And it is a bit hard to tell, kind of which instance of damage it's doing. But regardless, it's kind of cool that it does more damage against large enemies. And we can see the multiplier here for small, medium, and large enemies. It is actually a pretty significant boost from small to large. So yeah, I guess she will be a little bit better against larger enemies because of that. Now, one small thing that changed about her EX Special 2 is that it became even more rewarding to use. So when you do her EX Special 2, now you pretty much get a really fast and free Glacial Blade Wave right after it. which makes it, you know, I mean, that's just more damage for free, effectively. So there's really no reason to complain about that. And another cool thing about her EX Special 2 is that if you swap cancel it early, you'll see that the Glacial Blade Wave still came out. So it's even more swap cancelable than it was before. And just like that, she still did all of that stuff to finish off her attack animation. And the fun doesn't stop there, because Ellen also got, okay, the ability to parry attacks during the scissor charging animation, which is absolutely fantastic. And it also instantly charges her scissors, so she'll, you know, just cut the enemy much quicker like that. Because oftentimes it was super annoying to try to kind of squeeze out that scissor attack, because the enemy would attack you and then, you know, they would interrupt you and stuff like this. But now, not only does she like parry and attack with it, but she's actually rewarded for doing so, because it will finish the charging attack. And the last bit of buffs that she got is effectively in her core skill, which, as I mentioned earlier, her chain attacks, ultimates, and the new basic attacks, but more so just the chain attacks and ultimates, ended up getting 100% additional crit damage. We can see in this comparison clip that Ellen Ultimate version 1.0 did 60,725 on the last hit, and Ellen Ultimate 2.0 did 82,320 damage on the last hit. And thanks to that 100% additional crit damage buff to the chain and ultimate, she is in this specific build doing 35.6% more damage, which is a very nice and substantial upgrade. So the next thing I wanted to quickly talk about is, okay, what do these basic attacks mean when it comes to Ellen's performance? So I actually did, you know, compile the information as well as some frame data. And what's actually interesting is that the new attack, Glacial Blade Wave, doesn't actually do like a ton more DPS or anything like that, right? As we can see, it still does less MV per second, which is effectively DPS in this case, than her basic 3. However, the thing about it is that because it typically comes out in replacement of the B1 and B2, I would say that this is a strict upgrade, and especially because it has a lot of invincibility frames, so that way you're much less likely to be interrupted while going from basic 1 to basic 3. And the next thing is that the Icy Blade actually doesn't do, like, you know, a ton more DPS, you know, than, for example, her basic 3, except against large enemies it actually does do a bit more DPS, but against medium and small enemies, you know, it's about the same as the rest of her basic attacks. So while this doesn't necessarily increase her DPS, especially against medium and small enemies, by a significant amount, more importantly, it still sustains her DPS for longer. You can swap cancel it, and it gives you a fast charge for your scissors. So this is where you can see the quality of life really starting to add up for Ellen. Now she can sustain higher levels of DPS, as well as gaining fast charge to then, you know, sustain the higher levels of DPS much more easily, thanks to the Icy Blade. While, you know, Icy Blade, Glacial Blade don't necessarily do a ton more DPS, the fact that they have the utility that they do makes them actually a great upgrade. We have Ellen here, who has 12, 12, 12, 12, and for her equipment, she is using the Brimstone, which is going to be selectable for you guys in version 2.0. And her drive sets are pretty decent, all things considered, especially this one. Only I could bring some of these over to my actual account, that'd be fantastic, but unfortunately no. We have Lycon here, who is using the new 4-piece set, and this new 4-piece set gives a decent amount of crit damage to Ellen. So here are her stats, you know, with the Brimstone setup and all this. Could even use a bit more crit rate in all honesty. And then for the third character for this first free-to-play friendly showcase is Sokaku. And we have just, you know, typical cookie cutter swing jazz Sokaku build. So the first showcase that we have is going to be the version 1.0 Shark, where I've disabled, you know, her additional buffs. And we're going to directly compare that to literally the exact same team and setup, but all I did is click that button to enable it. And I would say that this team is what I would describe as already mentioned, like kind of a free to play accessible team, really depending on what you end up choosing. And yeah, I gotta be honest, I'm not a fan of Slowkaku. I think I just suck with her or something because you can just see me. The only thing I know how to do is to just mash that button 3 times. And now anyway, yeah, so this, I just came off of actually using version 2.0 Ellen. And as you can see, I wasn't really very comfortable with the way that stuff played out, but we can see that the classic rotation here, I think I have manual chain enabled. So we are doing, you know, an EX1 into EX2 swap cancel rotation for the chain. I have no idea if that's optimal or not, but regardless, you know, it ended up working out fine. And with this pre-buffed Ellen version 1.0, I only managed 19,290. I didn't want to bore you guys with the entire run for that one, so let's just move on to version 2.0. Now for the previous one, had I grinded a little bit more, yes, I could have reached 20,000, but you know, I didn't want to spend like hours and hours, right? Like you guys, most of you guys don't have hours and hours to keep trying this over and over to squeak out a few, you know, few hundred extra points here and there. But anyway, now, so we have Shark version 2.0. And what's really interesting about this is that Ellen has a lot more opportunities to swap cancel stuff. And here we go. We are just going to go for, I think, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Okay, so one nice thing about this is that you don't really need as much flash freeze as you used to. We're just gonna go for the swap cancel on the EX2, which is much more rewarding than it used to be. You can see this rotation is actually completely cooked. But we did manage to get the freeze just in time. So that way we can extend the stun window long enough for the ultimate to mostly fully connect, or actually entirely fully connect. And you can see the Icy Blade just take out a couple of the clones there, which is absolutely sick. Look at that, look at that. It just took out that clone. And then the dodge cancels and stuff are much more seamless, because now a big problem with previous Ellen that she had with dodge canceling and stuff was that you would get the dodge cancel off, and then you would still get slapped in the face because you end up using her dash attack. And in version 1.0 Ellen, she would very frequently get interrupted because Ellen's like timing for entering the dodge counter and not the dash attack is very small, and I think it still is, but the big difference here is that Ellen will actually auto parry during her dash attack, which makes it way more safer, and your Ellen's not going to get interrupted as much. And I think she also follows it up with Glacial Blade as well, further extending the invincibility window after a dodge counter. So no longer is Ellen just, you know, always eating crap after her dodge counter, which is absolutely fantastic, because that was one of my biggest pet peeves with Ellen prior to this, is that it was so annoying to use her and to dodge counter things, because you had to pre-input basically the basic attack instead of, you know, kind of reacting, oh, I dodged, now I use the basic attack. So yeah, just kind of a minor thing that it's like a little detail that it's hard to articulate, but it ends up making a big, like, you just feel like it's a lot better. You can see here I'm completely, you know, messing up against this enemy here, but oh well. We ended up with a score of 24,000, a big improvement, and roughly a 25% improvement compared to 1.0 Ellen. Now for this next build, we have her on just the standard crit rate, crit damage stuff, but this time we've upgraded to her signature Wenjin, which nowadays isn't as big of an upgrade in comparison to the Brimstone as it used to be. And pretty much the same set, except we're running crit damage here instead of crit rate, because, well, this thing, you know, provides a ton of crit rate. And now we have upgraded to lighter with his signature Wenjin as well, the Blazing Laurel, and finally this team will also feature Astro Yao plus the Elegant Vanity. So definitely a much more premium team, but I believe this to also be Ellen's probably new overall best in slot team for the buffed Ellen, thanks to her updated core ability. Now onward to Ellen's new overall, I would say, current best team with lighter. And this is absolutely great because one of the, I guess I would say, like, overlooked buffs slash, like, it's not really directly evident on paper, right? Like the crit damage buff is super obvious. Okay, yeah, now her chains and ultimate benefit from that 100% extra crit damage. That is super, you know, obvious with what it does. However, her now having the stun class available in her additional ability means she does not lose 30% ice damage when she's used with light. You can see me getting slapped around, so I apologize for the skill issue in the background. But we now have access to what I would describe as Ellen's new best in slot team. And, you know, her plus a suspicious man who she can now be friends with, because prior to this, he was too suspicious, makes a big difference, because that 30% ice damage actually makes Lighter much more worth it to be ran with Ellen now. So, yeah, and personally, you know, I personally like Lighter a lot, although, you know, kind of had to relearn the way this fight works. But the 3 extra second on the stun window also is very nice for Ellen, because she definitely appreciates hitting enemies while they are stunned. Although this new Ellen does a lot better against unstunned enemies, fortunately, thanks to all the additional iframes in Glacial Blade as well as Icy Blade. Both of these attacks making her way more flexible. And also, every time that you swap cancel, basically, like, you know, at the end of her basic 3 or whatever, you get that additional Icy Blade damage, which the previous Ellen obviously didn't get. So that's a lot of additional 500% like multipliers with the Icy Blade that you're gonna squeak out just because you are now able to swap cancel into the next character. So anyway, we are doing another rotation. Now, you may have noticed I've been playing on manual chain, and I'm not sure why I did the dash attack there. Maybe it, or the scissor attack, maybe it was to get the buff up. But regardless, my rotations are not perfect. My combos are not optimized. Honestly, I don't really fully know what I'm doing, but regardless, this buff definitely makes Ellen feel a lot better. Now, the scores that you're going to get with Ellen here, in my opinion, I put in roughly the same amount of effort as I did into Ellen as with Hugo in my previous like Hugo showcases and stuff like that. And I would say that Ellen's scores definitely fall short of Hugo. And I'm pretty sure Miyabi can also just straight up kill this thing at, you know, similar level of investment. But, you know, regardless, like, now it is quite comfortable to clear with Ellen with, for example, one of her more premium teams. Like, sure, she's probably not going to set any records in comparison to the newer ones, but this is a huge upgrade, which is absolutely fantastic, because prior to this, Ellen not only felt terrible to use, but she also just felt like she didn't do that much damage, and this definitely helps her out a lot. And yeah, this ended up being the result with 42,000 in the end. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.